Hi folks, I'm Dr. Ed Beyer. Today we're going to talk about leaky gut syndrome and how it causes another condition known as leaky brain. Now, leaky gut causes inflammation in the gut, body, and it leads to a breakdown in the blood-brain barrier. So we have this blood-brain barrier, and the brain is very, very picky. It doesn't like a lot of stuff in there, so we have to have a barrier system between our bloodstream and our brain. When the gut barrier breaks down, our brain barrier eventually will break down. People with chronic gut issues end up with chronic neurological issues, and people with chronic neurological issues, especially if they've had some trauma where the blood-brain barrier has been diminished through trauma, concussions, they all end up with leaky gut. And this is all in the scientific literature. Now what happens is if you look between these cells in our gut, we have these really tight protein junctions that hold the cells together like links in a chain link fence. And these are called, these proteins are called occludin and zonulin. When these are supposed to hold the cells tight together, but right here you can see where they've broken apart. And we've discussed why that can happen. And when they break apart, these proteins go down into the immune system in the bloodstream, and the immune system forms antibodies against those proteins. When we test for leaky gut syndrome, we're measuring antibodies against those proteins, occludin and zonulin. Now, when we form antibodies against occludin and zonulin in the gut, the occludin and zonulin also are the proteins that keep the blood-brain barrier very tight. So when we form antibodies against occludin and zonulin due to gut breakdown, the antibodies are also going to attack the occludin and zonulin in the blood-brain barrier and cause it to break down. So leaky gut syndrome leads to leaky brain syndrome because of this immune mechanism. And then we have a leaky blood-brain barrier. Now things are starting to make their way into the brain, and for every neuron we have in the brain, we have 10 immune cells protecting it. They're called microglia cells. And when we get leaky blood-brain barrier, all chemicals start to make their way into the brain, the microglia attack them, and that creates an inflammatory event in the brain. So we'll see a ton of different neurological issues as a result of that, like depression, Alzheimer's, the neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinsonian patterns, different cerebellar degenerative conditions, depression, anxiety, memory loss, mood swings, brain fog. It's usually how it starts. Now, another chemical in our blood that we can measure is called homocysteine, and that's usually due to a B6, B9, B12 deficiency. When homocysteine is elevated, that can also break down the blood-brain barrier. Now, the good news is that from a functional medicine perspective, we're going to test for these occludin zonulin antibodies and homocysteine levels to see if they're elevated. If they are, we know that you have leaky gut, we know what type of leaky gut one has, and we can fix it over time, make the junctions tight, and it's like fixing holes in your screen door on a hot summer day. You know, then the bugs and things don't make their way into the home, and this is what we do. This barrier system between the outside world and the inside of our body and the bloodstream and to our brain is absolutely crucial to both gut, body, and brain health. Brain inflammation causes our brain to age faster. We know this. This is all in the scientific literature. You know, we talk a lot about keeping our bodies healthy, but folks, the incidence of Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative disease is skyrocketing. Some of you out there may have your parents or your grandparents that suffer through this, and you may think, I don't want to go through that. Well, these leaky gut, leaky blood-brain barrier is how this stuff starts. So symptoms of leaky brain and neuroinflammation are things like, you know, mental disorders, schizophrenia, you know, ADD, ADHD, even a lot of children have leaky blood-brain barrier, leaky guts, and there are certain areas of the brain never fully developed, so they have neurodevelopmental delays, like we see on the spectrum disorders, ADD, ADHD, Asperger's, and autistic children. I mean, folks, 1 out of 38 boys is autistic. You know, 20 years ago it was 1 out of 10,000. There's a problem, and I'm not saying this is the only problem, but this is a big one. So Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, the Alzheimer's, and they project by the year 2022 that we will spend more money on Alzheimer's alone than type 2 diabetes, cancer, and hypertension all combined. Parkinson's, MS, and autism are skyrocketing. And then how many people do we know on antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs? It's just skyrocketing because our brain health is really deteriorating as a result of our gut health, and leaky gut causes leaky brain. And some of the symptoms of leaky brain fog, depression, anxiety. We've talked about these: memory loss, tinnitus, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, chronic headaches, insomnia, inability to handle stress in life, lack of motivation, and movement disorders like tics or restless leg syndrome or obsessive compulsive type problems. Leaky gut and leaky brain can be repaired, can be tested for, and it can be repaired. And in the world of functional medicine, that's what we do all day long. I'm Dr. Ed Beyer. I hope that helps. Have a great day.